Josh Gottheimer is a very powerful congressman. He's one of the biggest fundraisers in Congress. He is my congressman. He's a Democrat, but he's a very right-wing Democrat. He's in a purple district. We are one of the wealthiest districts in the country. He replaced, back in 2016, a very right-wing Republican named Scott Garrett. So a lot of Democrats were happy just to be rid of this guy, Scott Garrett. It didn't take long to find out that Josh was very right-wing. I was writing him letters because I was my father's medical proxy and power of attorney for a long time. My father was very ill. And I was writing him letters, about healthcare because he is vehemently opposed to universal healthcare. And he never responded. I mean, I would never even get a token response, and things got pretty bad with my father. So over the years, and literally years, I would probably send him a letter every month requesting help, asking questions about mainly healthcare. It was always mostly about healthcare. He has a protest at his house. Again, he's a right-wing Democrat. And this protest was held by the Sunshine Network, I think it's called, or the Sunrise Network. And it was at his home. And a couple of the kids got arrested for trespassing because they happened to step on his lawn or wouldn't leave. Small potatoes. And in the next day in the paper, I read a story where he tells the paper, listen, I wasn't home. My wife and children feared for their lives. People came to my house and this and that. Now, this guy lives in a $5 million home in a very wealthy town. These are hippie activists, environmentalist kids. Nobody was afraid for their life. The cops are basically always stationed outside his house. It's just horrible that, these are the people that are supposed to be in his camp, maybe not. But to go out of your way to say, they were like these murderous, intended people was terrible. So I send a letter to him, and I put the link of the story from the Bergen Record where he said that everyone feared for their life. And I'm like, Josh, if your family really feared for their life, it was just a nasty letter, said something like, if they really feared for their life, maybe you can loan your wife the bulletproof vest that you wear when you're in Patterson. There's the letter with the link up top. And what that's about is there was a story, and that was a big story, that Josh went to Bill Pascrell, another representative here, his 80th birthday party in Patterson at a bar. It was in the Intercept. He showed up to the party in a bulletproof vest. Patterson's a little bit of an urban town. But, for someone to show up there in a bulletproof vest, so apparently everyone said, Josh, you're looking a little puffy. What are you doing? Are you wearing a bulletproof vest? And he's like, oh, yeah, made an excuse. He was getting made fun of. Finally, the owner of the bar threw him out, apparently. And it was a big story. Like, this guy, some man of the people, can't even go to a bar without wearing a bulletproof vest.
This is the article in the Intercept.
Okay.
Because I have to be honest with you, Beau, when I didn't doubt your story that, that was Lawfare, but I didn't know all the details. And when I saw your email, I was like, that's a little, it's just my reaction, what you said. But then when you look into it more and you see this whole thing about this was a big story in the Intercept.
Big story, and it was, and people knew about it, and I had written emails to him prior to that, which was a little joke of mine, always asking him, "Did you really wear a bulletproof vest to Bill Pascrell's party?" There has to be at least 10 emails over a year where I sent him that quote, saying, "Hey, is this really true?" And of course, I was never getting an answer anyway. So so I send that, and that night. And I don't think anything of it. At the time, I was on the Passaic County Democratic Committee because I wanted to get on that committee because they told me that if someone primaries him, you can really vote for the primary challenger to get what New Jersey has is the line, which means they would get the primary placement in the ballot. That's going away. But, that's why I was on the county committee. So that night, I get a call from a D.C. number. I pick it up, and Agent Priest with the Capitol Police. And I'm like, what can I do for you? He's like, did you send Josh Gottheimer an email? I've never gotten a reply from him. This is like the first time I'm even getting an acknowledgement that Josh even gets my emails at this point. And I'm like, I did. And he's like, why are you talking about bulletproof vests? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, sir, this is what it's about. And this is the story. And everybody, and here in North Jersey, it's a pretty common story. So he's like, okay, I understand. Thank you so much. They didn't tell me that there was a story about that. And just be careful what you say and how you say it. Okay. I don't have a criminal record. I've never done anything wrong. So I kind of stewed over this. I was like, my God, this guy is making me look like a January 6th insurrectionist. He's putting me with the Capitol Police, having them call me. I'm like, so I got mad and I sent them another email the next day that was also mean, but similar to that one. And life goes on. 3-4 months go by and I get a letter in the mail one day from Bergen Superior Court that he personally went down to the police station and charged me for harassment for these 2 emails. Now, I tell people this all the time. I have some crazy friends and, we're jokers. I swore that one of them sent this to me because, it wasn't certified. It was, nothing. I called the court clerk in Wyckoff because that's where it originally was, but it got kicked to Bergen Superior because Josh knew the judge in Wyckoff. I said, is this really on file? Is this an honest thing? And this court clerk, which I don't think they're supposed to do, is like, yeah, it is real. And let me tell you, I am so sorry. Long story short, I take care of this myself because I really believe it's so frivolous. These letters are so ridiculously frivolous for him to take me to court. I'm going to defend myself. And I went pro se.
Well, if you hadn't done that, attorneys cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's where I think the other part of lawfare, is to harm people, is to get people to either go broke or just give up.
100%. That was what his goal was in this. And I figured that was to make me shell out $5 to $10 grand for an attorney because he knew I wasn't a rich guy. That's a hit. Teach me a lesson. Don't make fun of me or send nasty emails to me or whatever. So there's no doubt that was what this was. But as I get into this case and I meet the prosecutor's a woman named Linda Schwager. I don't know anything about her. She was just venomous to me. So I look into Linda Schwager, and of course, she's Democratic mayor of Oakland. She's been on TV endorsing Josh. He swore her into her mayor position. So, right there, I'm like, oh my God, how can she even be on this case? This is such a conflict. We go through 5 hearings. The judge, I think, was actually pretty fair, but I think he was in a tough spot because you have very powerful politicians that don't want to have egg on their face, even though this is ridiculous. And now I'm not kind of playing along with their plan. I didn't get an attorney. I'm fighting this myself.
And Beau, she was both the town mayor and the prosecutor?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds like a conflict.
Oh, that's North Jersey, baby.
But I'm from that sounds like New Jersey.
I want you to hear some of those clips because this is the first time anyone has heard these publicly. It's public record.
She starts accusing you of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, where there was nothing. If you saw the first email and the second email basically followed suit, there's no mention of religion, nothing like that. So obviously somewhere on my social media at the time, or who knows where, she got hip to the fact that I was pretty pro-Palestinian in my view. And, for her to bring this up in a case where this doesn't even exist, it was very scary to me because it's like, wow, it's one thing to harass me a little and make me go through this. But then if you're going to start and representing the state, labeling me an anti-Semite. And I say that as the case goes on. I said to the judge, obviously if I was a lawyer, I would have probably objected earlier and she wouldn't have been able to ramble like that. But I think the fact that she got to ramble like that was very telling.
First of all, he stated that he's an active member of the state county committee, which I found out was no longer true, knowing, I also do some research. But, Your Honor, he's very calm today because he's reading. He's sitting in his home. He's reading. He had time to write this out. But when he called my office, that tone was very frightful. I had a secretary who said she didn't want to talk to him anymore. And I certainly didn't want to talk to him because it was very loud, very boisterous, and it was frightening. So I would not subject myself to that. As far as lying, I don't lie. And the reason why I could not send him anything, because I cannot send something I do not have. I have made many calls to...
Beau, do you want to explain that part right there?
First and foremost, I will say this. The person I got along with best through this whole thing was her secretary. If anything, when I would call Ms. Schwager, I was the one that was getting screamed at. Obviously, I'm not savvy enough to think to record my calls with her because she only took a couple. And as we moved on, she refused to take my calls. I could only speak to the secretary, who I think we got along pretty good. And then what was the second part?
I was reading in your motion to dismiss that you didn't receive some stuff that you were supposed to receive from them, right?
So this is where she lied to me too and played a little game. When I asked the judge for time to write a motion to dismiss, he gave me 30 days. And right before that hearing ended, she jumped in and said, oh, by the way, I have more evidence on top of what he has in the discovery. There's a phone call that came in last week that I want to put in. I'm going to talk to a witness. The judge said, okay, get that to Mr. Forte ASAP so he can write his motion. And she said, I will. The next day I sent her an email saying, did you get that information? She didn't reply. A week after that, I sent another one saying, did you get that information? I'm running out of time, it's cutting into my time. She didn't reply. 3 weeks after that, I write to her and I say, Prosecutor Schwager, please, I need this, to write my motion. Now I only have 9 days. And she wrote back the nastiest, shortest email. She said, you have everything I sent you. There is no more. If I had more, I would have sent it to you. And it was like, you could tell she did that intentionally to really cut into my time to write this motion, because I'm not an attorney. I got to figure out the format.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. They know if someone is pro se, and I've dealt with this myself, that, just do last minute tricks of anything to delay or stall or cause you to have to go past the bar before you can represent
I felt like
that.
Yeah, so that's what she's talking about when she says I give him everything. She's trying to kind of dance around the fact that she cost me 21 days out of 30 to write my motion.
Congressman Gottheimer's office, where his secretaries and his staff also were frightened by his loud, threatening voice. He's very comfortable.
Oh, you're scary.
But you don't know him when he calls. And I had first-hand knowledge of that when he called my office. So when his staff told me they were frightened by him, I said, send me something. Send me something. No one has sent me anything. At the last court hearing, it is true the congressman was in Israel, which has been pointed out by his religion. And I'm sure Mr. Forte has not brought that up also about my religion. I guess we're sisterhood and brotherhood because we happen to also be the same religion. I guess in that way, he wants me to recuse myself because I'm Jewish. And I've been to Israel, and I have an Israeli tie. So I don't know. He has two sides to him. He has this calm, very, very, very calm, very just straightforward way of talking to you now. But on the telephone, he's not that way. You read all his emails, it's not that way. Talking about his personal life, so disparaging. I was embarrassed to read it. Talk about his Israeli friends. I was frightened by that because I have a mezuzah on my door. So I was worried he was going to come to my office, believe it or not. As far as not responding, as I said earlier, and I will repeat over and over again, as you are aware, in this court, I deal with all 70 municipalities. It took a long time to get something from the White Brook Township. I finally get it. I send it to him. I send it to Mr. Forte. That's all I have. I have nothing further. If I had it, I would send it to him. And I've been prosecuting this court for many years already. And so you're aware that if I have it, I give it. I disclose everything, as you heard previously. If I'm going to be away, I disclose it. I really...
God, it's so telling on, what this woman's motives were. I mean, the fact that she's giving her opinion that it was horrible. Her opinion is not the law. I'm glad
she had a phone call of you threatening and screaming and threatening people's lives or something. That would be...
Which never happens.
Right.
Never happened.
I have full disclosure. I have nothing more to give him. If I did, I would have sent it. If I could,
I think this is you right after this.
Congressman Gottheimer here to speak, but he's not here. If I had the opportunity, I would have his office staff here to speak and have them read a statement also. But I don't.
She had nobody because nobody had anything to say, and she's trying. I'm sure if I had an attorney, he would have objected and said, this is hearsay, she can't say this. I didn't have that kind of knowledge. I mean, in retrospect, but I'm kind of glad she rambled on, and I got all this on tape, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's really insane what she's saying there. It's just speculation and fantasy. I mean, can you imagine in a criminal trial, her argument would be, Your Honor, I've got the murder weapon, but I don't have it here with me right now.
If you look up Linda Schwager, she's been involved in a couple of cases where there were political people involved or politicians from, South Jersey or Central Jersey did something in North Jersey. And she uses that excuse every time. Like even in the articles, there's cases where judges get mad at her because she doesn't produce what she's supposed to. And she'll come out and say, I have given them everything I have. If I had it, I would give it. This is her MO. It's like, and listen, a prosecutor in Vicinage 2 in Bergen County, one of the wealthiest counties in the country, makes a good buck. So she's getting paid to do this. So and she's got her own divorce practice on top of that. So, and she's the mayor of Oakland. This is what we're dealing with here in North Jersey.
I think this is your part right here.
I don't like certain people labeling the opposition of the far right-wing Israeli government who implements an apartheid state on the indigenous people there as being anti-Semitic. I am not an anti-Semite. I think it's outrageous that someone representing the state would just throw that out there at me. And that's why I really didn't respond to it here, because, you know, Congressman Josh Gottheimer has gone as far as calling organizations like Amnesty International anti-Semitic simply because of their opposition to the way the Israelis under the current government treat the indigenous Palestinians. I believe that there was just an attempt on her part to gain bias in the court, and I think it's outrageous.
What I should have said too is, why are we even talking about Israel in this
Right.
game?
Right.
That's what I wondered. What in the world? Where did that come from? I saw that he was calling them anti-Semitic student protesters, but it was actually high school students.
Yes, in Teaneck. And you know what? I think that's going to really backfire on him. It's one thing, you know, to go after an adult, even though I'm a working person. I'm not really political. Sure, I sent them a nasty email. In my opinion, if you're a congressman making $175,000 a year, part of your job is to, and please excuse me for using a little language here, but part of the job is to eat shit from the public a little bit. And if they're just telling you, hey, you're a jerk and you're this and you're that, and that's part of the job. So, you know, obviously I got under his skin. That's one thing I never really dug into too, is how many people in the 8 years he's been in Congress has he done this to? Am I lucky enough to be the only one? I just don't know. But I do know that doing this to someone who really may not have the savvy or the law knowledge or the, you know, just the common sense to know that what you did really wasn't wrong, you know, it might cost them a lot of money, might really hurt someone. So we had an in-person trial a week before the trial, because Linda had made a fool of herself, Prosecutor Schwager. I just get the news out of nowhere that she took herself off the case. She fought to stay on. One of my motions was to have her thrown off. The judge, in all fairness, you know, said, listen, I looked at every statute I can. I do not see a statute where the prosecutor cannot be a political affiliate or ally or whatever, same party as the person that's pressing charges. He said, if I could find that anywhere, I would have loved to, but I didn't, so I can't remove her. But, you know, my argument was a good prosecutor should know that this is a conflict and she shouldn't be on this case. And
But they had more of a relationship than that, it sounded like.
It did sound like, because, and that was, if you heard in that one thing, she yelled out, she went, Congressman Gottheimer, because in one of the hearings, I said, you know, you could tell she's friends with him. She doesn't call him, she calls him Josh. She doesn't call him Mr. Gottheimer. She doesn't call him the Congress. She calls him Josh. And, you know, anyone you're going to do that with is obviously your friend. Right. You know, it's not just your professional associate or colleague. I just want to make one more point. 2 documents that I sent you. Day of that trial, that when I showed up, and it was a new prosecutor who was a really good guy. I don't want to name him, but he was really good, fair guy who knew he just got put in the middle of a shit show, if you will. And I said to him, too, I said, can you just dismiss this? He goes, listen, I can't just dismiss this because it would make my colleague look terrible. But bring your motion to dismiss to this in-person trial. If Josh doesn't show up, I'm not going to have anything to go on, and it'll get dismissed. So I get there, and right away he walks up to me with a funny face on, because I think he can't believe Josh wrote a letter. So Josh writes a personal letter to the judge saying, hey, I can't make it today, but I really want to. Now, he hadn't showed up to 5 hearings prior to this, and now he's writing a letter, I can't make it. I really want to testify. Can we move this? Because nobody informed me until, you know, today. The funny thing is, right when he said that, the judge pulled out a return receipt certified letter with Josh's signature on it that was sent the month before, telling him what the trial date was. So he's like, this guy can't tell me he didn't know. He signed this himself. So no, I'm not moving the date. But again, this was another attempt to, okay, he knows I took the day off work.
He said he couldn't come because he had something else pressing to do.
Yeah, he had something else to do. And so, okay, I take this and I go home that day, and just, you know, because he's my representative, I go to his social media, his Facebook page, and he's so either arrogant or out of touch or stupid that he puts on that day that he was at a place called Mindy's Munchies campaigning in Rivervale. This store is literally 15 minutes from the courthouse. So if he was just in Rivervale all day campaigning, he could have easily showed up in Hackensack to defend his prosecution.
Is he wearing the bulletproof vest here?
He might be. I don't know. He's always in a jacket. I think anytime he's wearing a jacket, he's probably, although Rivervale is a pretty affluent town compared to Patterson, so maybe not. I did learn a lot about a couple of civil rights cases. I will say that I just was savvy enough to reach out and find the right people. I don't want to name names because they did want to remain anonymous, but a big-time ACLU lawyer in New Jersey was guiding me a little, and a big-time lawyer out on the West Coast was giving me a little direction as well. No charge. I wanted the ACLU to defend me from the beginning. They did tell me that, and they were nice about it. They were like, listen, we usually almost never get involved in any cases prior to the appellate level. So if this is still the first stage, you need to be found guilty before we'll jump in and appeal it for you.
So the case was dismissed. You were not found not guilty. The case was just discontinued.
They accepted my motion to dismiss with prejudice prior to any trial at all. So the day of the trial, I showed up. I forwarded my motion to dismiss. He denied Josh's delay, and the prosecutor said, I have no further evidence. And he said, based on that, I'm dismissing this with prejudice. Yeah. 5 hearings, a trial. I got to imagine that this cost Bergen County tens of thousands of dollars, right, if not over $100,000.
But the idea was that, it was to achieve a political aim, right? It was to achieve a political end, as Julian Assange is saying, but also, too, Gottheimer is a man of power. Yeah. And, I'm just reading William Fulbright's The Arrogance of Power, which is a spectacular book. But he comes over and over again. He says how power mistakes itself for virtue.
What scares me is you said that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Most people, I would say, if not the vast majority, are well aware how corrupt we are. And it seems like we don't care enough to really do anything about it. And to me, that's worse than not knowing at all.
I think people excuse it because they expect it.
Yeah. I think we need to tell it more. I think we need to let more people know it's happening. And then maybe we band together, like me and Mike. I mean, Mike's a libertarian. I believe Joyce is, I don't know where her political affiliations are, but, people like us working people in general need to band together and say, hey, this needs to stop. And the only way we do it, I beat Linda Schwager. She's not the mayor anymore. I couldn't just, challenge Josh to a fight or show up to his house and try to beat him up. I'm running against him. I'll see if my luck, I'm going to ride this wave. I beat Linda. Let me see if I can take Josh down too. And if I don't, you know what? I tried. After this case was dismissed, right, and I knew Linda was going for re-election, and I was like, you know what? It was on a whim. I found out there was an Oakland town meeting that night. This was again before I was ever considering running for office. I was dressed terribly to go to a meeting like this, but again, I was just on my way from my father's rehab center where I was checking in on him to home, and I knew Oakland was on the way, and so I stopped in. They were having a public meeting that night, and I confronted her. And you saw it, if you see it on YouTube, you see how she treated me there.
Sorry. Here I am talking about smoking.
No, I know you don't want me to talk. That's okay.
No.
Beau Forte?
The motion to reopen?
Did we close it?
You did, we did.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Beau Forte, I just wanted to come up here so everybody knows what happened to me. In 2021, I sent a pretty mean, somewhat juvenile email to Congressman Josh Gottheimer. It wasn't criminal. I've never been charged with a crime in my life. I have no criminal record. When I got a letter in the mail saying that he personally pressed charges on me for this letter, I was shocked. I thought, I have some crazy friends. They might have played a joke on me. I didn't believe him. I called the court clerk. She literally apologized to me that this happened. Said to me, Josh, be a baby. Gave me advice on how to play this out, yada, yada. So I find out who the prosecutor is, Ms. Schwager. I call her, I'm like, is this for real?
It's my job.
And she says to me, she goes, oh yeah. I'm like,
it was a quick case.
Are you gonna dismiss this immediately? What's the crime? Like, yeah, it's juvenile, it's a little mean, but
Excuse me, just a minute. This was a court case, and if you remember, I recused myself, and another prosecutor took over.
She recused herself a week before it went to trial, and the prosecutor said to me, there's nothing here. I can't dismiss it, but they'll dismiss it if Josh doesn't show up, which he didn't, and because there's nothing here in the discovery. But during the case of this trial, she slandered me. She lied to me. I have proof of it in emails. I tried to file an ethics complaint against her.
Excuse me, this was, now you're going after me on my profession.
I'm telling the truth.
Excuse me, I did my job. You already filed the ethics.
She did not.
Excuse me.
She did not.
I'm asking you. I am sorry. It had to do with Bergen County Court. It has nothing to do with Oakland.
No,
it was a
criminal
case. It was a criminal case. I was doing my job as a prosecutor. And my job as a prosecutor is to prosecute.
You were putting a citizen through hell for no reason.
You know what?
For vengeance.
You know what?
For your
Excuse me.
You should have never even been on that case.
Excuse me.
With your relationship with her.
I ask you to please sit down. It was my job as a prosecutor. Do I have to call the police and ask you to leave?
This is why I'm here. I just want my story to be heard.
Your story was heard.
Not by anybody but you and
Want to
Judge
hear, you want to
Galino,
tell your
who
story?
constantly reprimanded you during that case. And I can let
Excuse
you hear
me, and the
tapes.
language you used was abominable.
And it wasn't criminal. That's
Excuse
your
me,
opinion.
excuse me, I ask you to sit down. You're out of order.
I'd love to tell anyone the story.
You can tell the story, call the police. I would call the newspaper, I'm sure they'd love to hear it.
I mean, this is what I went through for a year. 6 hearings in a trial that she didn't show up to, but she dragged me to 6 hearings. How much did that cost Bergen County?
Excuse me, you're out of order. Motion to close.
So moved.
Second, there was second to close to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please sit down.
Thank you for your time.